Now read a second time. I call the member for Balmain.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the Greens to address the energy legislation amendment bill, retail electricity and gas pricing bill. I'll try to keep my contribution relatively short, Mr Deputy Speaker. But what we know is, of course, the bill aims to complete the government's process of deregulation of electricity and gas prices in New South Wales. Very nice of you to say that, Minister. Yep. You know, one of your best qualities, Minister, is you're not the last Minister. Because the last Minister...
Order. Can we direct the comments through the Chair, please?
What do you mean by that?
The approach, Mr Deputy Speaker, of the last Minister was very different and I think was counterproductive to getting good outcomes in these areas. But this bill makes amendments to the New South Wales Electricity Supply Act, taking into account the government's deregulated electricity prices in 2014 and, of course, extends it to gas. You may know, Mr Deputy Speaker, that we Greens are very concerned about this deregulation process that we know was on the radar of the Coalition back in 2012. And in July 2014, the government moved to enact these changes to remove pricing controls. They did so by regulation. I know they thought there would be a bit of a problem in the upper house. We sought to disallow the reg, but eventually the regulation was agreed to. This deregulated market was something that, of course, we were very concerned about because there are three players in the market which really dominate 95% of the mass market. We were concerned we'd see an increase in electricity prices. We were also concerned that without the protection of a regulated price, the consumers would face bills that would tip them over the edge. And it's our view that this market and energy affordability has really become a critical social justice issue here in New South Wales. I draw the attention, I know the Minister has had this drawn to him before, of the report commissioned by the St Vincent de Paul Society on the 12th of October 2015, which showed that the retail competition margin of gas and electricity retailers has risen to $600 per customer. That's something that I think really concerns a lot of people, and it draws into question the competitive nature of the market and whether or not the players in the market are generating the kind of competitive tension that the government was saying they'd be able to deliver. Because it's clear that going by the St Vincent de Paul Society report that there really is problems in this market in terms of delivering competition if we're seeing the margins increase so significantly. I also note, Mr Deputy Speaker, that the New South Wales Energy and Water Ombudsman's annual report shows a 53% increase in complaints regarding impacts on credit ratings from 12-13 to 13-14. Complaints regarding to disconnections for non-payment up 32%, debt collectors up 32%, and refused payment arrangements up 64%. These are really alarming increases, Mr Deputy Speaker, and it's a matter which the government needs to address because, as we know, electricity and gas are essential services for all the citizens of this state, and to see such an alarming increase in these indicators is very concerning. The reason why we were concerned at the time was because the power market is confusing. While some consumers, less than 40%, who were subject to the old pricing regime, have moved to the competitive market, it's still clear that it's confusing. Customers don't really have the time or expertise to deal with it. The majority of customers, as the Minister's speech indicates, only 38% of transitional tariff customers have taken advantage of choices. So it's a real challenge. Finally, Mr Deputy Speaker, the major reason why we're concerned about it is about the issue about the real factors underpinning electricity price rises. What are the real factors underpinning electricity price rises? We know the cost of expanding the poles and wires. You know, the gold plating was almost 50% of the rise in power bills over the past 5 years. That's the culprit behind the increase in electricity prices. That has been delivering that significant increase. That was a significant challenge. And we know that despite the fact that the government in 2011, under the former Minister Harcher, required a requirement on power bills to make a statement about increasing costs, what IPART tells us is a driving factor behind the increase in New South Wales electricity bills is investment in the transmission and distribution networks, which accounts for 50% of retail energy bills. But the costs associated with the carbon price made up only 8% of New South Wales electricity bills, while other schemes contribute around 7% in terms of the solar rebate and so on. So the real cost driving electricity price increases over the last 5 years, 50% has been the gold plating of the poles and wires. And we've seen that in my electorate, and we know that there's a pullback on that, and that's important that that does happen. Finally, my final point is, what do we see? is the future. We've expressed our concerns about the competitive market and also about the real issues underpinning the energy market. We're big believers in the smart grid, allowing households and businesses to buy and sell clean energy, including rooftop solar and regional and statewide wind power. We believe in peer-to-peer selling of electricity. So if you've got a city in the building that generates a whole lot of renewable energy, they should be able to provide that to their next door neighbour at a retail price. At a retail price. And that, Mr Deputy Speaker, is something we need to do because we need to transition from the fossil fuel market with the static distribution and generation model into a peer-to-peer sharing model and a smart grid model. We believe that's the future of electricity in this state, and we're encouraging this minister, unlike the last minister who had no clue, this minister, who I think has a sense of this issue, to be able to take that forward. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, I appreciate the opportunity to make a contribution to this bill, and I trust the minister will continue to take into account these concerns.